Okay, and we're live. Happy World Oceans Day, everyone. And thank you for joining us. We are exploring by the seat of your pants. My name is Melissa. I'm going to be your host for today. And it's my pleasure to introduce Teresa from the Turtle Hospital. So they opened their doors in Marathon, Florida in 1986. And since then, they've been helping to rehab turtles and educate the public through outreach like this. They have been conducting research with universities and colleges, and they work towards environmental legislation to help make beaches safer and cleaner for sea turtles. So they have lots of cool equipment there and a lot of nest turtles that they're going to share with us today. With that, I would like to introduce Teresa. Thank you for joining us, Teresa.
You're welcome. We always like being able to teach people about turtles. So this turtle here, this is Stuart. So Stuart's been with us since February. He's a juvenile green sea turtle. And so the green sea turtles get their name, not because they're green, because he's brown, but because they're herbivores. They're vegetarian. So in the wild, they eat lots of seagrass and algae. Here, they get romaine lettuce, kale, green peppers, green stuff. And they eat so much green stuff that their fat, their insides, turn green. So it's kind of like you are what you eat. Just be glad it doesn't work that way for us, because we'd be all kinds of different colors. But Stuart came in because he was found floating. He had tumors. So when he first came in, that's what he looked like. He had tumors, which are growths, all over his eyes, around his neck, around his front flippers. And it's a virus that the green sea turtles get. It's called fibropapilloma, FP for short, and it's caused by water pollution. Because these green sea turtles, because they are herbivores, they like to live in the nearshore waters. So in the seagrass beds, which is where that water pollution and the runoff is the greatest. And these turtles are the ones that eat the seagrass, which the seagrass are kind of the natural filters for the ocean. So they take in the polluted water, clean it up, and release the fresher water, but then these turtles come along and eat the polluted seagrass, which then makes them sick. And so they have to come in, we do surgery, we remove those tumors, and then they have to stay tumor-free, typically close to a full year, long enough that they build up enough antibodies to the virus that they become immune. So Stuart is doing much, much better now. He is currently tumor-free, but he still has a while to go before he's able to be released. So for right now, because he's just recently tumor-free, he has to stay by himself, sort of almost like a quarantine. Just like for people, when you get sick, you kind of stay home from school, stay home from work, so that way you don't get everybody else sick. Well, this is the sea turtle version. And then once he's a little bit stronger, then he can go with the other turtles. And we've got a much larger pool for him to do that in. But for right now, Stuart gets to just hang out. But those tumors, when they kind of come in, are kind of nasty. So this is little Ash. He still has some little tumors on his back end. But Ash also is missing half of his left front flipper. There's no real way of knowing how, whether it was from an entanglement or from a shark attack. It's not like Ash can tell us. So Ash still needs one more surgery to get him tumor-free, and he'll still be able to be released, even though he's missing half of that flipper. He's always going to look a little bit funny, but that's okay. He'll still be able to do everything that a normal turtle does. It's only when they're missing more than one flipper, then release kind of becomes an issue. So like this guy, this is Kevin. Kevin's pretty awesome. So he was attacked by a shark, and so she's missing both of her front flippers. And so when Kevin first came in, we know it was definitely a shark because she came in with scratches all over her back and all over her belly. Because when they're getting attacked by a shark, what they'll do is they'll twist and they'll turn. They'll keep their back or their belly to the shark because it's a lot harder for the shark to bite them. Think about you trying to pinch your hand. You can pinch the side of your hand very easily, but you try to pinch the palm of your hand, it's a lot more difficult. So same thing with the turtles and the sharks. So all that shark got was just Kevin's front flippers. Because sea turtles, they cannot pull their heads and their flippers inside their shell like a box turtle can. So for right now, while she's still healing, we're just keeping her in shallow water. It's only about a foot and a half deep. So this way she doesn't have to struggle too much. Once she finishes healing and she gets a lot stronger, then we'll test her out in some deeper water, see how well she does. We'll make that determination if she's able to be released. But even if she does have to stay in captivity, prosthetic flippers might be an option. We'll just have to wait and see. Kind of wait and see what happens. And Kevin is a girl. When they're younger like this, like Kevin's pretty young, she's only about 30 pounds, only about 5 to 10 years old. When they're young like this, you can't tell just by looking at them if they're a boy or a girl. They look identical from the outside. The only way to tell is to look inside and see what parts they have. But once they hit adulthood, if they're a boy, they get a long tail, gets to be up to about 13 inches in length, whereas if they're a girl, the tail stays really short. So Kevin, we know, is a girl, but Kevin doesn't know that. Kevin doesn't know that Kevin's supposed to be a boy's name, so Kevin doesn't really mind. They're not like dogs, they don't respond to their names. The names are really just for us. Helps us to give the turtles a little bit of a personality. That's why sometimes our turtle names are kind of strange. And sometimes they actually get changed. Because Francesco here, when he came in, his name was Francesco, and then we realized that Francesco was a girl, so we just kind of shortened it to Fran. But she's another one that came in with tumors. She's tumor-free now, but she was also bit by a shark and missing her left front flipper. But she'll still be able to be released. But the green sea turtles, these are one of the more common species that we get down here in the Florida Keys. And one of the great things about the Florida Keys is that we are located right here on the ocean. Because the Keys are kind of unique. We're a string of islands, a little bit more than 100 miles long. So it's lots and lots of ocean. And we have a barrier reef down here. So we have lots of perfect habitat for sea turtles because it stays nice and warm, because sea turtles are reptile, they prefer warmer water. Plus there's lots of food, whether they're the greens and they're vegetarian or they're carnivores, we've got lots of it. And so it makes us kind of unique is that we are located right here on the water. And so we do rely on boaters and fishermen, the people that are already out there on the water, to keep an eye out for the sea turtles. So that way if they see a turtle that doesn't look quite right, they call us. One of our rehab staff is always on call, and then we have an ambulance. We'll go pick the turtle up. And then as a thank you, they get to name the turtle. So sometimes they get named after themselves or kind of where they're found. So like Caroline here, she's pretty. She's about 130-pound loggerhead sea turtle. And so the loggerheads get their name because they have a really, really big head. Look at that thing, it's huge. But they have that big head because these guys are carnivores. So in the wild, they eat lots of seagrass, or they eat crab and lobster and conch, anything with a hard shell. So they have a very strong beak in order to bite through that shell. But Caroline's been with us since the end of March. She was found floating. And so floating in a sea turtle is not normal because they eat at the bottom, they sleep at the bottom, they do everything at the bottom. So we knew from the floating that something wasn't right. We brought her in, we did x-rays, found out that she had an impaction. She had a blockage in her intestines. So she'd eaten something she wasn't supposed to, and she got all blocked up, she couldn't poop, so she got gassy. Basically, she was constipated. So we've spent the last couple months giving her medications to help her poop and get rid of that gas. So at this point, she's finally able to sleep at the bottom, which is a very, very good sign. So we just took her off medications, and we'll keep her off meds for just about 2 weeks, long enough to make sure that she really is completely healthy, that it's not just the meds masking the symptoms, and then she'll be able to be released. So not too much longer. But one of the problems with these turtles, especially the loggerheads, is that they are carnivores. They are hunters. They'll eat anything that gets put in front of them. And so yes, sometimes the impaction is partly natural, because if they eat too much of like the crab shell and the conch shell and not enough of the meat, that'll kind of block them up. But also it's trash, plastic, especially things like balloons and plastic bags. Because floating in the water, balloons and plastic bags look like food, looks like jellyfish. And these turtles eat it thinking that it's food, and then it makes them sick. So you just always have to be very conscious as to what you're doing. And everything ends up in the water eventually. Doesn't matter if you're actually on the ocean or not. It all ends up there. And then it becomes food or getting entangled in. But that's why we're here, is to help them when they do get sick. But she's just a very, very pretty turtle. And loggerheads, even though she is quite big, she's 130 pounds, she's not fully grown yet. Loggerheads will get to be about 400 pounds, so shell length up to about 4 feet long. And sea turtles are unique, is that they never stop growing. So the older the turtle, the larger they are. That's really the only way that you can guesstimate their age, is based off of their size. And so Caroline's about 130 pounds, so probably about 15 to 20 years old. Whereas we've got Chuck Norris, he's only about 80 pounds, so he's a lot younger. But he's another loggerhead. He was hit by a boat. He came in back in March. So he's a very lucky turtle, because it's a pretty severe boat strike to his shell. It's due to a propeller. So he's very lucky that it didn't kill him, it didn't get his lungs or his internal organs. So he should be able to make a full recovery. He just needs at least a few more months to heal. But their shells are very hard. Their shells are bone. But unfortunately, propellers and boats are harder. Just like with people, like if you break your arm, you get a cast for a couple months. Well, we can't put a cast over his entire shell, so instead we just use little strips glued to his shell to help stabilize it and help it heal. That's kind of where he's at right now. But looks like he might just be taking a nap. They do that a lot when they're sick. And when they're sleeping, they can hold their breath up to about 5 hours. So, a lot longer than us. But just like with people, when you get sick, you get very weak and tired and you sleep a lot. Same thing for the turtles. And then as they start feeling better, that's when they start getting more of an appetite and they start moving around a little bit more. So even though Chuck right now still sleeps a lot, he's a lot more active than he was 2 months ago, which is a very, very good sign. But it looks like he might be waking up. There he is. But we named him Chuck Norris because he's a fighter. He's a survivor. We thought he needed a nice, strong name. So we thought Chuck Norris kind of fit the bill. Okay, and then one of our newer turtles, his name is Freddy. He's only been here just about 3 weeks. So he's another large loggerhead, about 120 pounds. But he was hit by a boat. So he's got that boat strike damage to the back of his shell. But he was also bit by a shark as well. So he's missing his left front flipper. So he's just another case of where he's got multiple problems. But he's doing okay. He's finally starting to eat a little bit on his own. But he's still going to need a lot more time. And for right now, because he is pretty weak, we're keeping him in just very shallow water. So this way, it's kind of our version of bed rest. So when he wants to, he can sleep. He can swim around. But if all he wants to do is sleep, he just has to lift his head up to breathe. That way he doesn't have to struggle, he doesn't have to waste energy coming up to the surface. So he just kind of does his own thing. Okay, so we want to do some questions?
Great. So I'm going to cycle through based on my list here. So the first class I have is this class, and they are from San Jose, California.
Wait, one person asked a question. Connor. Ask it.
How old is Freddie? Probably about 15 to 20 years old. Sea turtles, they don't grow at a set rate, so you never know exactly how old they are. It's just really your best guess as to their size. So we know he's still kind of sub-adult, so not quite yet adult size. So we're kind of just estimating 15 to 20.
Awesome. All right, we'll come back in 1 second, Miss Lee's class. Okay, does the Reach the World Explorers Club, do you guys have any questions? We can hear you. I'm just not sure if you have.
All right, we're having a little problem with our camera, so we're not sure if you can see us, but we do have a question right here.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Darden, and did you guys make the sea turtle hospital because they were endangered?
Partly. The Sea Turtle Hospital, or Turtle Hospital here, we are unique. We are located on an old hotel property. So it's kind of unique because now our rehab staff gets to live here on site. But when the hotel was built back in the 1950s, they did not have chlorinated swimming pools. They had saltwater pools. So we have a huge 100,000-gallon saltwater pool down there. And so Richie Moretti, our founder, he bought the hotel in the early 80s. He turned the saltwater pool into an aquarium. So when he tried to get a sea turtle for the aquarium, the state told him that he couldn't because they were endangered. And so he had to be able to help the species in some way, not just show a turtle. So he's like, okay, we'll have a turtle hospital. Because there's turtles down here, they're getting injured, there's nowhere to take them. And that's kind of how the turtle hospital began. And we've been that way since 1986.
So great question, guys. So we go to Miss Gladys's class, and they are in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
How many turtles have you had with tumors?
Quite a few. We've got 46 turtles in total at the moment. Typically, it's about half of them that come in every year because of tumors. Because every year we typically get in about 100 turtles. And it's typically about 50% it's because of tumors. Like Janet here, she's one of our more recent turtles. She's only been here for about 2 weeks. She came in because of tumors.
Awesome, great question. So now Miss James's class, you are on air. Go ahead, Miss James.
About how many eggs can a female turtle lay?
Each nest has about 100 eggs. And so they have to be a little bit bigger than Caroline before they're able to lay eggs, because adulthood's about 25 to 30 years old. And so nesting season is now. It's May through October. So they'll go back to the same beach that they were hatched from, kind of crawl up on the beach in the middle of the night, lay their nest, go back out in the ocean for just about 2 weeks, and then they'll come back up and lay again. And that one mama turtle will lay between 4 to 6 times in that 1 year, and then she'll take 2 to 3 years off. So within one season, she can lay between 400 to like 600, 700 eggs. But it's estimated that only 1 in 1,000 of those babies will actually make it to adulthood. Because a lot can happen in 25 years.
guys. And Miss Barahas's class in Oxnard, California. Would you like to ask a question? Ocean
That one's got a
Hi. Oh, you're gonna have to come closer to the microphone, guys.
What is your oldest turtle?
Oldest turtle.
Well, our oldest turtle would be our largest turtle. We have a 250-pound loggerhead. His name is Rebel. So he's actually one of our permanent residents. So he lives down in that big pool, but he likes to hide. He doesn't always come up to say hi. But he's probably about 40 to 50 years old. Average lifespan is about 70 to 100 years old.
Excellent. Okay, Miss Lee's class, back to you.
Angie, you have a question. Who has a question? Precious, come closer.
Do you have any baby turtles?
We do not. We ended up with a couple of kind of out-of-season babies earlier in the spring, but those guys got ready to be released. They were all strong and healthy, so they got released. And we haven't gotten any hatchlings from the nests that have been laid this year yet, because it typically takes about 50 to 60 days for them to hatch. So hopefully end of June, beginning of July, we'll start getting babies.
That's awesome. Okay, and the Explorers Club, you're on air.
Hi, my name is Junior, and I want to know, how do you get the turtles?
Well, because the Keys are so long, about 100 miles, we can't patrol all of that ocean ourselves. So we rely on the boaters and the fishermen, the people that are already out there on the water, to keep an eye out. So that way when they see a turtle that doesn't look quite right, either because they can tell that it's floating or that it's been hit by a boat, it's got tumors. For some reason that turtle does not look normal. They call us, and then we have an ambulance. We'll go pick the turtle up.
Is it a boat ambulance?
We have a van.
Yeah.
So if for some reason they cannot get the turtle on their boat, then we'll call Fish and Wildlife or the Coast Guard and see if they can go out in one of their boats and help.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Explorers Club. Miss Gladys's class, back to you.
What's your favorite name that anyone's named one of the turtles?
Well, they're all pretty awesome. But one of the kind of ones that stands out was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we had a turtle named Coral Bacon. She was found by a family, and the little girl wanted to name her Coral, the little boy wanted to name her Bacon, so the turtle became Coral Bacon.
That's great.
So I really doubt we'll ever get a turtle named Coral Bacon ever again.
I think you're right. Okay, Miss James's class.
How old do your turtles normally get?
Well, average lifespan is about 70 to 100 years. So, a long time. But we get a lot more of the juveniles than the big guys, which is not a bad thing, because it's easier to take care of the turtles when they're smaller. They're easier to kind of carry around and everything. Whereas once they get a little bit larger, they get a little bit more difficult. Because like Kent here, he's about 170 pounds. He's a beast. But he's one of our permanent residents. He was hit by a boat, and he has what we now call bubble butt syndrome. Meaning that when he was hit by that boat, air got trapped underneath his shell, so now he floats. So you can't release a floating turtle, so now he gets to stay here.
Nice. Like a turtle vacation, kind of.
A permanent vacation.
Permanent vacation. I have a question online about what would the carnivorous turtles eat when they're with you in the hospital?
Well, when they're with us here, we can't, especially when they're sick, we can't always give them crab and lobster and conch because we don't really want to add to their digestive problems. So instead, they get squid, fish, shrimp, stuff that's a little bit easier for them to digest. Ooh, and Rebel popped up. So this is Rebel. He is our largest turtle. He's about a 250-pound loggerhead. So he's huge. But he'll still get bigger. But he's another one of our permanent residents because he was hit by a boat and he's got bubble butt. And his rear flippers and tail are paralyzed because that boat strike damaged his spine.
Yeah. Hey, Miss Barahas's class, back to you. Come up near the microphone. What was the
What's your heaviest turtle?
This guy. That would be Rebel here.
And we have a class that said they noticed there were tags on the turtles. Did they all get tagged when they get admitted?
When they get released, or if they become a permanent resident, they get tagged. So everybody gets a flipper tag, so a metal tag on the back side of each front flipper, and then they also get a pit tag, so a microchip inserted into the back of their neck, just like microchipping your dog. So that way if they ever pop up anywhere else throughout the entire world, we know exactly who they are. But when they're patients, to help kind of distinguish them from everybody else, that's when they get their name written on their shell. So that way, when they are patients and they're still getting medication, we can make sure that they're getting the right kind of medication, that we're not mixing the turtles up. Just like when you go to the hospital, you get a wristband with your name and all of your information on it. Well, these guys are in the hospital, but they don't have a wrist. So they can't really get a wristband.
Awesome. Okay, Miss Lou's class, back to you.
Miss Lou's class! Who wants to ask the question? Someone ask the question.
Here they come.
It's not even you to people. Do you have any turtles that are pregnant?
Pregnant turtle.
We do not. Now, typically, the sea turtles will return to the same beach that they were hatched from to lay their eggs. And so we don't have any sea turtles here that are allowed to mate because even if we were to give them a nice, pretty fake beach here, they know that it's not their beach, so they won't lay. And when sea turtles are in the wild, if at the beginning of nesting season, if they don't have a lot of extra energy, if they don't have enough energy to make it through nesting season, they'll take that year off, kind of conserve their energy, and wait till the following year.
Pretty cool.
What was your first turtle?
Well, one of the first turtles was Bubble Butt. He's our longest resident. He's been here since 1989. Let's see if he's up and about. Oh, he is up and about, but he's out there in the middle. So Bubble Butt's hanging out there just to the right of the buoy. So he's kind of the one that started it all. It's now called Bubble Butt Syndrome after him because he was hit by a boat and he's got bubble butt.
Great nickname. So we're going to go back to Reach the World Explorers Club in New York.
My name is Jordan, and what's one of the youngest turtles?
The youngest one is probably Bowser and Copper. They're just about 2-year-old loggerheads, and they're actually part of our Head Start program, which basically means that we've had them since they were hatchlings, and we keep them for about 2 to 2.5 years till they hit a certain size, so that way they have a much better chance of survival, because they'll be a lot bigger, a lot healthier, a lot stronger, so a lot less likelihood of being eaten. So this is Copper. So he's just about 2 years old. He'll be 2 in July. and he'll be released this summer. Because he's pretty big. He's a lot bigger than he was when he first came in.
Thank you very much, but it's time for our lunchtime, so we're gonna have to go.
Okay, thanks, guys. See you later. Okay, so now Miss Gladys's class. Have one question.
What type of sea turtle do you like?
I think that was, which is your favorite sea turtle?
All of them? You can't pick just one? It's like trying to pick your favorite type of chocolate. It's all good.
Yeah, they're all good turtles. What kinds of turtles live in Florida?
Well, there's 5 different species. So, like down here, the loggerheads and the greens are the most common. So that's what we have most of. And then the hawksbill sea turtles and the Kemp's Ridleys, they're both considered critically endangered. So we only have one of each of those, but they like to hide. And then the leatherback sea turtle is also critically endangered. They're also the largest of the sea turtles. They get to be up to about 2,000 pounds. And so because they are so big, they don't like to live near shore. They like to spend most of their lives offshore, so middle of the ocean. And so the keys are pretty shallow, so they don't really like the keys too much.
Okay. And Mrs. James's class, do you have any questions?
Why do turtles have interesting patterns on their shells?
Well, it kind of depends on what age they are. So when they're younger, so like Copper here, he's a little bit more of a coppery color. And that's for camouflage. Because if he was in the wild right now, he'd be offshore in the floating sargassum seaweed, which is kind of a reddish-brownish color. So it's kind of perfect camouflage for when they're younger. That's where they kind of hang out. Whereas the green sea turtles, they have more of a pattern on their shell. And each turtle is different, so no 2 green sea turtles look exactly the same. So like Fran has one pattern, and Stuart has another, even though they're both pretty. But that pattern helps them blend in into the seagrass. Think of like tigers and cheetahs and leopards, places that those big cats that kind of need to blend into the tall grasses and the trees.
Great question, guys. Okay, Ms. Grahas, class. Back to you.
Do you want to? Go ahead. How do they get the tumors?
The tumors are caused by water pollution. So the exact method, we're still not sure yet. It's something we're still trying to study. Because even as much as we know about sea turtles and about the tumors and the virus, there's still a lot we don't know. So we keep doing studies, we keep answering questions, and then we keep getting more questions. It's one of the fascinating things about research, is that it's never one and done. There's always more to learn.
Awesome. And you were telling me before our chat started that a lot of the people who care for the turtles are scientists or studied science.
Yes, most of us have some type of degree in something science related, but whether that's biology, zoology, marine biology, it varies.
Awesome. Okay, so what about, if we go back to the Explorers Club in New York, another question?
My name is Christina. Are there any turtles that are omnivores?
At different stages of their lives, yes. So like the green sea turtles, when they're babies, they're omnivores, just like the loggerheads are omnivores when they're babies. And then once they get to be kind of juvenile subadults, that's when they go primarily vegetarian or herbivore and carnivore. But if given the opportunity, a green sea turtle will still kind of chow down on a jellyfish, no matter what age they are. Because jellyfish just seem to taste good to sea turtles.
That was a great question. Thanks, guys. Okay, I see Miss Gladys's class. There's somebody up near the microphone. Do you have a question?
What's your least favorite thing to treat on your sea turtles?
Well, sometimes it's very, very hard when they come in and they're very sick. So when you get turtles like Ash or turtles like Chuck Norris, and they come in so severely debilitated or so severely injured that you're not sure if that turtle's going to survive. And sometimes they don't. We are a hospital, so sometimes our turtles do die. So that's always really, really hard. But we always try. Because you do get turtles like Ash and like Chuck that come in so bad. But you just kind of go slow and take your time, and they end up surviving and making it, which kind of makes it worthwhile.
Thanks, guys. So we have a few more questions online. So we were asking, how did the shells get scratched? I think we answered that, but Teresa, if you want to give us a reminder.
Yeah, so their shells are strong, like their shells are bone, but if they get hit by a boat, boats are stronger, or if they were to get bit by a shark. So that's how little Kevin ended up with his scratches. And if it's just on the very, superficial, just on the very top, then they'll heal, they'll go away. But if it actually goes down into the bone, they'll just end up with scars. But it won't hurt the turtle, they'll just have scars. Scars are part of growing up.
It's a cool story to tell their turtle friends. And so what about Carol? How old is Carol the turtle?
Caroline?
Yes, Caroline.
She's probably about 15 to 20 years old.
Okay, and then we have a question about, would the carnivore turtles eat a human?
Not really.
No.
Sea turtles typically will just leave you alone, especially if you're diving or snorkeling and you see a turtle. They'll just kind of swim the other way. Typically, they're more scared of you than you are of them. But, that being said, they're still a wild animal. So, it's always a good idea to assume that a wild animal will bite you, especially if you do see one in the wild and you go up and start trying to poke at it, which is illegal because they are an endangered species, so you're not allowed to harass them in the wild, or anywhere for that matter. But if you annoy them, they're going to turn around and bite you, with good reason.
Yeah, like any other animal.
Yes.
And then we'll go back to Mrs. James's class. I have a question.
Can turtle shells heal by themselves?
Depends on the severity of the wound. And so, sea turtles, their body systems run a lot slower than ours do. So their heart rate, respiration, metabolism, it's all slower. So in some ways, that's a good thing. Because it means that, when Ash lost his front left flipper, or half of that front left flipper, that healed on its own. So that wasn't us healing that. That was all him. So that way, it's a good thing. And sometimes if they have shell damage, it will heal. But when you have severe damage to their shell, like Chuck Norris, that'll be too much to heal on their own. So just like with people, every time you get a scrape or a cut, you don't have to go to the doctor, because sometimes you can just put a Band-Aid on it and you're fine. But the worse, the deeper, more severe the injury, that's when you have to go to the hospital. Same thing for the turtles.
Okay. We have time, I think, if we go around one more time with questions. So Ms. Barajas' class, one more question.
Alejandra, you want to try again? You can say it really loud.
What's the turtle with the biggest tumor that you have?
Oh, we didn't quite catch that.
Said, what's the turtle that has the biggest tumor?
The largest tumor we've ever seen was on a turtle named Jimbo. He was just about 60 pounds when he came in, and he had a little bit more, it was 3.1 pounds connected to his shoulder.
Wow.
Yeah, so that thing was massive.
And did that impede his ability to swim?
Yes. Because think about you trying to walk around all day with, like, water wings. How you can't really move your arms? Well, that's kind of what having a tumor is, except it's heavy.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And one more question from the Explorers Club in New York.
Hi, my name is Jair, and I wanted to say that how many animal rescues, how many animals do you save?
Well, we only deal with sea turtles. Because being down here in the Keys, there's other places that'll take the dolphins and the manatees and the birds. So we only have to focus on sea turtles. And every year we typically get in about 100 turtles. And we're typically able to release about 70% of those.
Wow, that's a great success rate. Great question, guys. Miss Gladys's class, your last question.
Is it possible that any animal can bite through a sea turtle's shell?
Well, it depends on the size of the turtle. Because when these guys are first born, they're only about 2 to 3 inches long. So kind of one bite and bye-bye baby. But once they get bigger, then that makes them pretty safe. And that's their main defense against predators is their shell. Because even when they're younger, like Kevin, yes, if a shark got them on their side, they'd be able to bite right through the shell, especially the larger sharks. But the turtles are going to twist and they'll keep the broad side of their back to the shark, so it's a lot harder for the shark to bite them. But then once they get over like 100 pounds, they're a lot bigger. Most sharks aren't going to bother. They're going to go after the easy, smaller prey.
Awesome. Okay, and did we have one more from Miss James's class?
How do turtles hold their breath for so long?
Well, because their body systems run a lot slower than ours do, they don't need as much oxygen and everything right away. And especially for when they're sleeping, they kind of drop everything even lower. So think about when you hold your breath. If you held your breath and sat in a chair, you could probably hold it for a minute, maybe 2. But if you tried to hold your breath and do jumping jacks, you'd be a lot less, just because you're expending a lot more energy. Same thing with the turtles.
Great questions, guys. Okay, so I think that's about the end. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined us today on World Oceans Day. And a really big thank you to the Turtle Hospital and to Teresa for showing us around. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll let all the classes say a big thank you. We've got our microphones turned on. Go ahead, guys.
Goodbye.
You're welcome. I'm glad you guys all enjoyed it.
All right, thank you so much, guys. Have an excellent day. Enjoy the rest of World Oceans Day. We'll see you later.